Mr. Chairman, we're live.
Ladies and gentlemen that are tuned in, we're just waiting for one more member to have a quorum. Should be momentarily, and then we'll get started on the confirmation hearing. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll call this confirmation meeting to order. We're pleased to be here today. The Corporations Committee wished to extend welcome to friends in the executive branch, and this is a confirmation hearing for Mr. Chris Petrie, who is the current chairman of the Wyoming Public Service Commission, or I'm vice chairman, I guess, and I'm sorry. He's been chairman, and so he's worked with this committee for a long time. And we would go to Mr. Randall Luthi, Policy Director at the Governor's Office. Mr. Luthi.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. As mentioned, my name is Randall Luthi. I'm Policy Director for Governor Gordon. And this is one of the most favorite things that a policy director can do. And that is come before the various Senate committees and introduce them officially to people they already know. And that's exactly what I'm going to do today. I introduce you to Mr. Chris Petrie, who has been serving on the Public Service Commission, has done an absolutely fantastic job, coming in now for his first full term as a member of the PSC. He has 2 degrees from the University of Wyoming, as I do myself, so it's got to be a good choice, right? But I actually know—
If it were only Wednesday.
Right, exactly. And something I did fail to mention, of course, is Governor Gordon sends his best to you all on the committee as well. But I've actually known Mr. Petrie for longer than that, back when I was in the legislature, although I had asked him today, and neither one of us can remember what the case was, but he used to be in the Attorney General's office for the Consumer Protection Group as well. But what I do recall is extremely helpful. And I think that is what he has continued to be. His service to the state of Wyoming is exemplary, and certainly his knowledge and skills on the PSC has been great. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I now turn it back to you for whatever action you would like to take.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Luthi? Thank you, Mr. Luthi. Our welcome and appreciation to His Excellency for sending you today. Give him our best. Mr. Petrie, welcome. This is the most unusual kind of proceeding in our legislative culture. So we actually administer an oath. And so I would like to do that at this time. And the oath is very simple. It's, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give before this committee will be the truth?
I do.
All right, Mr. Petrie, we certainly give you the opportunity to make an opening statement. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. You've all heard me say this many times. I'll say it one more here today. Safe, adequate, and reliable service at just and reasonable rates is crucial to every aspect of modern life in Wyoming and everywhere across the country. In fact, in the world. And it's been a great honor and a pleasure to play a small part over the last couple of decades in making sure that in Wyoming, we enjoy that situation, that we have the utility service that we need throughout the state, and that it is all achieved in the most efficient and straightforward ways possible. We are, as you all know, now living in pretty interesting times as far as utilities are concerned, particularly the energy utilities. And we have a lot of work to do as we're going into the future. Things are changing probably more rapidly than they have ever changed in this sector. And it may be that there is more uncertainty surrounding issues, especially in the electricity sector, than certainly than in any time that I've been around to see it. I'd be honored to continue to play a role in seeing to the successful maintenance of the situation that we've had in Wyoming. And that's really all I've got to say by way of opening remarks, Mr. Chairman, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Sorry, thank you very much, Mr. Petrie. It's a pleasure to have you here today. Committee, any questions for Mr. Petrie? Senator Dockstader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Petrie, it's been a pleasure to work with you. One of my concerns, not just out of this committee, but legislative as a whole, it seems like we're using the Public Service Commission more to sort out what we may leave in question. We're using you good people on the commission to, in a sense, be the catch net. Does that concern you, or do you feel like it's just part of the job description?
Mr. Petrie.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Dockstader, I won't say that it has been especially easy to deal with a greater variety of involvement with potential new legislation and new legislation. I think it's kind of a sign of the times, though, and we have done and we'll do our best to be helpful, to help advance the interests of the state of Wyoming, the people of Wyoming, and we will speak frankly with the legislature if we believe that something is under consideration that's going to cause a problem for us, in the sense that it's going to get in the way of us attending to our main and most important job, which I described in my opening, making sure we've got the service that we need throughout the state and that the rates are just and reasonable. If we're being shoved too far out of our lane, we'll let you know. And if it's within our capability to help and to help develop our direction, we will pitch in on that task to the best of our ability.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Boner.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maybe a similar question, just a different way of putting it. I'm excited about the things that we've done in recent years with, having the ability to object to an integrated resource plan. We have you looking at reliability maybe in ways that you didn't before. But, maybe similar, want to make sure that you understand that we're here to help, and we don't want to put too much on your plate that you're not able to handle, recognizing that we are increasing your workload. So with those two policies that we passed last year in particular, I guess, how's that going? Are you feel like you're able to deal with those policy changes and take on those new tasks, or is there something more that this legislature can do to support you?
Mr. Petrie.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Boner, those two particular legislative initiatives, I think fall into the category of things that the commission might have been able to address on its own initiative, but the guidance that we received from the legislature was helpful, I believe. IRPs, for example, the consideration review of IRPs for a long time was sort of a sleepy backwater because there was not the kind of exciting or shocking change and development in that area. And so that's a task that does take some work, it does take some resources, and it's a worthwhile pursuit. And I think it was time to do that. So I had no disagreement or concern that that was going to consume commission resources in a pointless manner. And I think we're making good progress in that direction. We before the legislation was passed, in fact, we had stepped up by necessity the scrutiny that was applied and reconsidered our approach to dealing with integrated resource plans that tend to come from the big utilities that have a huge impact on the state, and the impact extends, and we know it extends beyond the basic utility components. It touches the rest of life in Wyoming. So on that count, it was time, and I'm glad that we're doing it. Mr. Chairman, the other point on reliability, that's a core component of our responsibility. It's a core component of the utilities obligation, which they, that's their part of the regulatory compact. They get the service territory, they acquire the obligation to serve, and that's something that, again, the commission has always been concerned with. The commission has always been attentive to, but there are and have recently developed an increased number of reasons to have concerns about it. So the spotlighting on that topic by the legislature and the guidance, I think, was helpful, and it's got us off on the right track as far as I'm concerned. We do not want to see deterioration of the service quality that we need in the state to conduct our lives and to conduct our businesses and industries. And so we do not want to see anything interfere with that. And so there are new pressures that could affect reliability and service quality. And so that direction of our focus, I think, is helpful, and I don't think it's going to cause us any problems.
Thank you. Senator Dockstader.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Petrie, Commissioner, yesterday I made a trip over to the far west, sat down with a member-owned co-op. We're talking about matters that will probably ultimately be in front of the commission because it's such a rapidly changing energy picture out there. As you close out here, or it's up to the chairman when you close out, your thoughts, if you had advice and counsel for legislators, for those who run our utilities across the state in this changing picture, would there be kind of a synopsis of counsel that you'd offer in this changing picture? What can all of us do better to prepare for the Public Service Commission?
Mr. Petrie.
Mr. Chairman, and I apologize, Senator Dockstader, what can utility leaders outrunning utilities do?
And Mr.
To
Chairman,
you, Senator Dockstader.
plus legislators as well. What can we better do so that we're not saying, well, you make the final decision without, we're just kind of bringing all this information to you. We're bringing our decisions to you, Mr. Petrie, Mr. Chairman, and saying, you're the catch net, you fix it. What counsel would you offer to our utilities, both investor-owned and public-owned and legislators as far as the Public Service Commission goes?
Mr. Petrie?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Dockstetter, I'd say none of us, legislature, Public Service Commission, utility leaders around the state, should take our eye off of the main purpose of what we're doing here. We need to have efficient, effective, reliable service in all utility sectors, and we need to keep our focus on that. And at the same time, keep an eye towards the opportunities that might be emerging in new technologies. There's a lot of reason to discuss new technology in the wildfire prevention and mitigation territory. There's a great potential actually for new generation sources. There's a need, if we're going to have a reliance on renewable generation sources, to develop safe, effective, and cost-efficient storage mechanisms. So while we maintain our focus on the core of it that matters today and next month when people and businesses and industries around the state get their bills, we also need to be awake and mindful that there are changes happening around us, and we don't want to let opportunities pass by without deliberately letting them pass by.
Thank you, Mr. Petrie. Anybody else? I've personally enjoyed working with the commission for a long time. The commission has been very responsive as an agency. You all have been there a while, and I see we've got Chairman Throne behind you and Mr. Burbridge. But you responded to the challenges well. You've worked within your lane, and because you have the most restricted lane, and it's been a joy to work with you. And I think we've accomplished great things together through this committee and the work of the legislature and your agency. I have a problem in my district that I'm very concerned about, and I see no solution. And I'm going to just lay it out here. We have, for a long time now, 30 years, I'm not sure if we got, how many mics you guys got on? Just might shut yours off for a second. It kills the feedback, and then we can try it again. But for 30 years, we worked on an evolution of telecommunications in Wyoming. And we've really taken a very rigidly regulated structure, and now your responsibilities are incredibly limited. And we've kind of perhaps accomplished the final transition of that, or nearly to. The trouble is, in some places, that's not working at all. So I have, the reservation is in the boundaries of my district, everywhere where people live on the reservation. I'm part of the community out there. I go to church on the reservation, and I have a parishioner. She is 89 years old. She is a marvelous, intelligent, capable person. And she lives at the end of North Fork Road on the reservation. And she has had service from CenturyLink for, it's depended on that wireline service for her telecommunications needs. It's important that she have that service because where she lives, the cell phone service is literally not very good. It's almost non-existent. We have a close relationship, and I try to check on her almost daily. And literally, in the process of an overbuild on the reservation by a tribally owned telecommunications system, they cut the cables to CenturyLink's facilities. Apparently there was no locate. Apparently it was, I won't say it was malicious, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying it was very careless. And there are people without landline service, without the ability to access 911, and very isolated. This woman lives alone. She's fully capable of living alone and dealing with the bears and everything, but I'm tremendously worried about her. And she's not alone. and I brought this to the attention of the PSC, I brought this to the attention of tribal authorities. The solution seems to be offered that the new company called Wind River Internet is going to provide landline service to the affected customers, except for their facilities are never going to go so far out to where this woman lives. So she has no alternative. And I guarantee you, I thought about trying to call her this morning and show you that you cannot get through. So she's isolated. She lives on deeded land and she's non-native. How can we help her?
Mr. Chairman, that's, as you know, a very difficult problem. We have gone well past the days when we had a monopoly telecommunications carrier that we could basically coerce into providing service in areas like you described. There are areas in your district. There are other parts of the state where similar situations exist. We have not seen proliferation of what we would now think of as traditional wireless service that reaches those areas. There are topography problems. There are economic problems with it. There's not enough traffic for anybody to spontaneously build out their equipment into those areas. One solution that we have suggested to people and encouraged people to try to use is voice over internet, or now I think there may be some direct satellite options. There are even actual, direct satellite options. The satellite phones are the type that wilderness search and rescue crews might use, or backcountry travelers. Those are expensive. There's some difficulty, as you said. This particular constituent's 89 years old. That's often not the ideal customer to try to break in to a new technology that's more complicated and at least somewhat more difficult to use under the best conditions. And I don't have a solid solution for that I can offer you today. I think it's worth some discussion. I think that we're getting down to a point where we may have a relatively small number of people like that perhaps the state somehow we could come up with a solution that could be supported, or that some telecommunications provider could be convinced or enticed to reach out into those areas in spite of a not particularly attractive business case on its own.
Mr. Petrie, I appreciate that greatly. I suspect that if this happened off the reservation, we would have the ability to do more, and that there would be FCC rules about anti-competitive behavior between companies. There would be call before you dig requirements. There would be more industry pressure that would prevent people from, companies from doing this to each other. So it is unique. I don't think it's really a function of our laws, much as I think it's a function of the jurisdiction of being on the reservation. But I'm using these proper names of the main reason I'm doing this, Mr. Petrie, is because I hope that folks that are part of that company on the reservation and part of the company that provided the landline service will listen to this testimony, and that they will do something, because this is abhorrent. And it's not your fault, it's not within the commission, but I hope you guys would help me as well. To you, and this is my final question, to you, Mr. Petrie.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize for skipping perhaps the more pointy point to your previous question. This is a very special and difficult situation. The call before you dig system is fairly successful and reasonably effective in preventing and discouraging these sort of events. But there are jurisdictional uncertainties and probably just jurisdictional gaps. And it would be wonderful if everybody would be careful when they're digging. There's important infrastructure under the ground all over the state. It's rather shocking when you see an inventory of the things that are under the ground and how ubiquitous they are. And it's a very difficult situation when you don't have everybody's cooperation. And so that cooperation of everybody that touches or might touch any of that equipment, including the access to make repairs and the responsibility when there are repairs that need to be made because of something that you've done is that's probably what we need the most.
Thank you so much, Mr. Petrie. Anybody else from the committee? What we would do now is allow for public testimony, and we appreciate very much. At the end, we'll seek a motion from one of the committee members to support your confirmation, and I'm sure we'll get that. So, Mr. Petrie, thank you so much. We're grateful for your service, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Senator Dockstader, and Senator Boner. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Good. Madam Chairman, welcome, and I apologize. I always mix up the order over there because you guys rotate it every year, right? I get confused as to where we're at. Go ahead. To you, Madam Commissioner Thorne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to take probably 30 seconds and mention sort of the soft qualities that are important in a commissioner. As you know, Mr. Chairman, we are all independent. We deliberate publicly. We cannot discuss cases. But it's also important, in spite of that, we do have to work together a lot. And we work together on the bench. We have to have collegiality and team players. And so I just want to mention that Deputy Chair Petrie brings those qualities to the table as well as his extensive knowledge and brilliance in the area of utility issues.
Thank you. Any questions for Commissioner Thorne? Chairman Thorne. Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Tracy, I know you indicated you'd like to make a statement. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Bruce Acey. I appear here today on behalf of Montana Dakota Utilities, which provides service in northern Wyoming. We stand before you in support of the nomination. I have known Mr. Petrie for a number of years. We haven't always got along. He was a great advocate when he represented consumers and did his best to make sure that they had every opportunity to be protected. I'm impressed as an individual that represents a utility with how even-handed Mr. Petrie is, particularly with respect to balancing the needs of utility and continued service with the needs of consumers. And I think that's a quality that we really want to continue. So I stand in support of his nomination. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Acey. Any questions for Mr. Acey? Thank you, sir. Would anybody else like to offer a public statement? Anybody else? I see we have Mr. Garrett. Welcome, Mr. Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Richard Garrett, and I live here in Cheyenne and was born in Casper. And I just want to say that I've known Mr. Petrie for a very long time in a lot of different roles. I'm just going to speak to his character. Like so many of our public employees, he exemplifies the best that we expect out of all of our public employees. He's a wonderful, wonderful representative of our state in all that he does. So I think you're doing the right thing if you confirm this nomination. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. Any questions for Mr. Garrett?
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing more public comment, but I may be wrong. Please. A former commissioner, welcome. Go
Good
ahead,
morning, Mr.
please.
Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Kara Fornstrom. I'm the former chairman of the Public Service Commission. I had the pleasure for 8 years while I was on the commission to work with Commissioner Petrie, the time he was chief counsel. And so I had a lot of experience with him there, and then I've observed him the last 4 years as he's transitioned to this role as commissioner. In my experience, Chris always brought, a deep experience in the broad spectrum of utility issues, based a lot on his experience with the agency before, the OCA. He's had a long history working on these issues. He's very thoughtful in his approach, which is also appreciated, and he's diligent in his preparation. The amount of information you're provided as a commissioner before any hearing is extensive, and he reviews every single page. And that's not always the case. And so I really appreciate that about him. So I'm here to support my good friend, my former colleague, and I just think we're really lucky as Wyomingites that someone of his experience and dedication to the mission is willing to continue to serve.
Thank you, Ms. Farnsworth. Thank you very much. Any questions? I'm sorry. Great, thank you. All right, any other public comment? Is there anything online?
Mr. Chairman, there is not.
Okay, so a committee, there's a motion that we could make that I hope one of you would make to support his nomination. Senator Dockstader?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I move that we forward the name of Christopher Petrie to the position of PSC Commissioner to the full Senate for confirmation.
Okay, any discussion? Should we call the roll, or all those in favor? Let's call the roll on this one. And I have a proxy from Senator Landon of aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a roll call vote for confirmation of Christopher Petrie for the Public Service Commission. Senator Boner. Aye. Senator Dockstader.
Aye.
I have an aye for Senator Landon.
Correct.
Senator Steinmetz.
She's excused.
Chairman Case.
Aye.
Chairman, you have 4 ayes.
That, boy, it was a squeaker. And really appreciate the diligence of the executive branch and the Public Service Commission. Mr. Petrie, you're going to do well. Thank you. And thanks to all to come to support him. Appreciate it. We're adjourned.